questions. I'll make sure I stop along the way. And we will email this recording out to everybody. All the webinars are now housed on a special place within our site too. So you can access all of them, and we'll send that link out by tomorrow at the latest. So I'm Kristen Graham Brown, and I'm the owner and founder of Hoot Design Company. And today we're talking about crafting your brand tension point. This is something that we have found to be incredibly helpful as far as scaling your brand goes. And one of the really interesting things about this is, we built our whole system to train a team that might be functioning like below the owner founder within an organization. And what's been so cool about that is that applies so well to AI. Because really you want to just think of AI as like, a really smart intern at this point that you can train. So all these tools that we have built along the way for humans have actually been able to really be like the rocket fuel for AI. And the brand tension point is one of those things that I have seen be incredibly powerful for not only training teams, but also for training AI. Okay, so quick, brief overview of who are we. Hoot is a culture-driven branding agency. We really believe that your team is your first brand advocate, and that a lot of the pitfalls that people fall into are because they didn't start with their team. And when you have synergy within the company organization, that's when we can get that synergy outside of the organization as well. So that's our approach. And our entire process, our methodology, is built on this idea that brand is the being and marketing is the doing. So what we're working to do when we help people mine their own stories and define their brand is identify the being so that the doing is much easier. And I think this is a big issue that people run into is they run down the road of the doing without identifying the being. So they're distracted, they're not consistent, and they certainly can't train other people, which is a huge issue, or AI. Whether you're in one of those camps right now, this is going to be super beneficial to you. Either you're training humans or you're leveraging this for AI. So part one, I'm going to briefly talk about the brand advocate, and we're going to do another whole webinar on this because I think it is so key. So this is a bit of a hot take. I'm really big on hot takes. I think all brands need to have a lot of hot takes, or basically you're not saying anything worth saying. So the hot take that I have about the brand advocate, and we get pushback on this all the time, is that no one wants to commit to one customer. So they want to say, like, we're for everybody who goes out to eat, or anybody who wants to invest their money. That is not a brand advocate. We need the smallest viable audience. So I don't know if you've ever heard Seth Godin say that, but he has a lot of content around smallest viable audience. And what that means is that we are able to talk very specifically to one person. And when we try to talk to everybody, we end up saying nothing. Okay, so we leverage our brand tension point to speak to our brand advocate. And that one target is what all of our content is pointed towards. Last time someone asked the really great question, like, what if we're getting leads that aren't the brand advocate? I mean, no problem. You're thinking of your brand advocate as the center of a bullseye, and there's a lot of people on the outer rings of the bullseye. Okay, so they're going to come to us for all different reasons. It doesn't mean I have a sign outside that says no to anyone that's not the brand advocate. But when we have limited resources, we need to specifically target a certain person. This is an example of our brand advocate. So Elizabeth James, this is totally fake. This person is not real. We used to pull images, and I don't recommend that anymore because then you're kind of like assigning like a race, which seems unnecessary. So I do really want to leverage the power of storytelling though to dive into who this person is so my entire team understands. And every time I'm saying team, you can also think of that as AI. So also when I'm using Claude to do all my content, he knows, it knows exactly who I'm talking to. Okay. And it's Betsy James, fake person here. So I really encourage everyone to build this person out. So we have a why she came, why she stayed, and why she's obsessed. And then, of course, I know those demographics too. The thing that's interesting about demographics, it's really helpful to dive into demographics, not because we actually care what dog they have or what car they drive. It's because those things tell us about their identity. And a shared worldview is what actually attracts the right people, right? So whether I drive a Range Rover or a Volvo is not about, we don't actually care. It's what that tells me about their identity and their worldview. Any questions there? So this is something I'm huge on. Everyone crafting at max, you want two. And feel free to build out more. Your job is only harder. I can tell you, we have two people right now. We have a corporate client and we have an owner founder client. And we have struggled. We continually struggle to talk to our corporate client. It's just, it's hard enough to talk to one person well. Okay. So now what I'm here to talk about today is a brand tension point. So a brand tension point is this mechanism that we came up with to help describe the way that your brand looks and feels with only two words. So you might have heard of like a brand archetype. That's like an old system that's been around for a while where you have like the creator brand, I'm blanking on some of them now, but you could Google that and you'll find a lot of information on it. What we found was we needed to create something that was a little bit more flexible than just having one of these like 12 archetypes. We really wanted a mechanism that would allow us to communicate how this should look and feel in two words. If I'm only going to use two words, they can't be synonymous, right? And then I just wasted a word. Like sophisticated luxury. That I just said the same thing. And if I only have two words, they better be painting a very vivid picture very quickly. Now, one thing that really trips people up, and I would say it trips up AI as well, this is not who I am as a brand or as a person. It is just how I look and sound and feel. So it's basically the first impression. So the words that I'm using really need to elicit a feeling or maybe even an image for you in your mind. So one way to think about this is like we want to control the first impression as much as we can. You might want to look at this as like how I'm dressed. So how I'm dressed is not who I am as a person, right? It's not that deep. And that's what the brand tension point is doing. It's really just describing how I want to look and feel. It's the combination of, for my brand, it's the combination of visuals and voice. So through our process, we also do this other thing called brand heart, where we help you determine your purpose, your vision, and your values. So that's really deep, like who I am, and it says a lot about my worldview. The brand tension point is just trying to help me define your first impression of my brand. Does that make sense? So a lot of people try to choose words that describe them on a really deep level. This is just how I want to be perceived. Questions about that?
So this is really just kind of a first impression kind of look.
Yes. And so probably the best way I can show you this is to show you examples. And so this is Hoot's brand tension point, and it's poised disruption. That's not who we are, right? We're like a lot deeper than that. We offer a lot more to our clients than just poised disruption. But if I want to make sure that my stuff is on brand when I'm having someone create it for me, I need a mechanism of how I want us to look and feel. So, like Nicole, I know you're very familiar with like building interior spaces. If someone was like, how do we make Hoot's office feel on brand? This is my mechanism for that. I would say I want it to feel like poised disruption. A lot of people are like, show me your swatches. What are your hex codes? We're going to put red and black on the walls. Like, no, that's super weird. That's not on brand, is not just splashing your hex codes up on the wall. It's how I feel when I step into this space, and I want people to feel poised disruption, which is like this combination, right, of like we're disruptive and edgy, but we're also going to feel sophisticated and polished because we're like a hefty investment. So I don't want people coming in here and feeling like it's all, people just wild and out of control. It should feel like this combination of two things you might not see. And that is the way our visuals combine with our voice. So our voice is grounded, unconventional, and confident. And when those are combined with our visuals, we hope you feel poised disruption. So I'll show you a couple of other examples here. Unconventional moxie. So this voice is confident, playful, and human. We sound like this, but never like this. This is a great thing to provide AI or humans, but do's and don'ts. Like we want to sound upbeat, but we never want to overkill. We want to sound sure of ourselves, but we never sound full of ourselves. Brand lies in the nuance. So really finding that fine line of things is where a brand can really come to life. So this one, unconventional moxie. Hopefully you feel that in the visuals and the voice. And again, like this brand is a lot deeper than this. What she's doing is super cool. She's really big in like the LGBTQ space. We can't describe everything that this brand is, and it is only two words, but I can tell you how I want it to look and feel. So that when she's working with a copywriter and a designer, she has a mechanism to speak to this. This one, joyful sophistication. So again, this should feel really light and bright and happy, but she's a wealth manager. So there also needs to be inherent trust, right? Like you can see in this logo, strong, clean, structural, but we're also trying to bring in a level of joy here so that people feel like this is accessible. This is someone who wants me to live my best life. This one, fierce sophistication. So again, you can see this is a coach that's for entrepreneurs. So he really wanted to go hard in like, the fierce, let's say almost athletic space. But this is for people who are high net worth individuals. They also need to feel like this is an expert coming in to, support them again in building out more wealth and a better life kind of thing. So, this is a brief little explanation for you as to why the traditional approach fails. So, I have seen this time and time again without a brand tension point, like even within our office when we're working with a new client where we didn't do their identity and they don't have a brand tension point, our office will struggle to get on the same page. That's why having a mechanism like this that can easily get your whole team on the same page about what the North Star is so helpful. So you're using a gut feeling. There's a lack of language and a lack of clarity for everybody involved, right? When we don't have something like this where we can all say, remember, we should feel like poised disruption. We're shooting for poised disruption. Are we achieving it? Kind of thing. Now I'm going to have a little bit of time for us to go into our like workshops, some of our own, and you guys can ask questions because what I see happen a lot is it's hard to get the words exactly right. So I have some words that I've pulled for you guys that you can look to. So do the words paint a vivid picture? Do they actually create tension? And remember, look or focus on how you look and feel. It's not about how you behave. It's about how we want to look and feel to our audience. So I've put some words here that work and words that don't work in red. So I see this a lot where people try to pull out words that are smart and they might even be a good indicator of how you behave, but they are not painting a vivid picture. They're not giving me a feeling. And if you don't work for a brand that you have control over, this is even a fun exercise to do for your own personal brand. if you're here today and you don't have a brand that you have control, I would say, how do you want to be perceived yourself, your personal style? How do you want to exist when it comes to like your own first impression? This is like such a fun exercise to do with your office mates too, like even saying what you think people's brand tension point is. I know a lot of you know Emma, and I feel like Emma is like East Coast kind. Which are you laughing, Nicole? Because that's should not be brand tension point that East Coast and kind would naturally go together. But I really feel like that's a perfect embodiment of kind of like how she can present her style, kind of presents itself. So this is a great point for questions. Any questions on this approach at this point? Well, let's just take a couple minutes here and kind of maybe grab some of these words that you think might be a good fit for your identity or for, like I said, if you don't have a brand, maybe even just how you want to be perceived as a person, as more of a personal brand. And then hopefully someone will be willing to share and we can talk about it.
Willing to share words that we think fit our brand or
Yeah, yeah. Like if you want to talk about the words that you think might be a good fit for your identity, yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
um, I have a brand called AdMix and we do residential design build architecture building interior design and I focus on came up with the way to describe us years ago. I call it urban progressive. And that was sort of formulated off the idea that I like the urban fabric of life and the urban style of life, but try to live a very progressive lifestyle. I mean, I feel that our ideal client is a progressive person, likes art, architecture, music, style, etc. So that's where urban progressive came from.
I love that. Do you feel like that has served you well in this in this way?
I think so. It definitely creates a niche market because we don't do traditional style design. So some people would tell you, some people would say that it's limiting, but I say that that's okay because I'm not really going for the mainstream. I don't design mainstream styles. We design for a certain demographic of people. And so I've had clients say to me when they've come and seen our office, like, I need to get my wife here because if I say urban or modern to them, to her, she's gonna run away. But if she sees this, she'll understand, kind of thing. And so again, urban progressive, the way that I actually define that when I talk to people is modern, but not quite minimal or Miami, and industrial, but still rich and welcoming.
Oh, love that. Yeah, I think that's really powerful.
Thanks. I'd love to. I mean, I'm always curious how I can elevate it, take it to a new level, but I've been working on it for a while.
Yeah, maybe even just defining it, Tobin, like writing out like what you just did for us when you're trying to leverage like AI to help or people to help you create would just be like defining it like we are this, we're not this. And I think it's such a great example that you said this alienates some people because you want your brand to repel. That's something we talk about all the time. If you're not repelling anyone, probably not bringing anyone in either.
Yeah, it says it flat out on our website. This is not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah. Right. And that's like a super powerful position to be in versus trying to please everybody.
Okay. So I'm looking at the the words on the left, and so I've got playful because I want it to come across as like we're not, we're thoughtful and smart, but we're not taking ourselves too serious. but then I'm trying to look for something where like raw wisdom or just kind of like, but I can't see anything on that list where it's like they're gonna want to work with me because I get it
Right.
and I can't be bullshitted, by all the different, we're gonna be able to look at something and smell it out.
Right. Like playful experience. Do you think experience is just like a blob word?
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
I just did playful pro for somebody, which is that's a cool one. I'm sorry, Tobin, were you going to say?
I like the word intention, playful intention.
Mm-hmm. Intention's cool. I know because you really feel like your point of difference is the level of experience.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the ability to tell people what they need to hear that they don't want to hear.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's,
That feels different than playful for sure. Like playful candor.
yeah.
Well, I know you guys can't really see me, but I was just going to interject that I think in part it sounds like you're wanting to sound genuine, and if you're wanting to get taken seriously, I think, and I think if you want people to kind of believe in the even if whatever that word before that is, whether it's playful or electric or disruptive, I think either way, I think a kind of a key word there too is maybe just being genuine and being taken, for real,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to maybe creating a perception of what your brand is, and then that's what people identify with, as opposed to maybe a core value or something that you genuinely feel or how you genuinely want to be perceived.
Yeah, that seems like it's getting closer. I mean, I thought of grounded or something, but it's kind of like, okay, and I also looked at cheerful, because one of the things I think is our point of difference is that we can be lighthearted about this, but then really serious. So
Mm-hmm.
people tell us they really like when we're on site and they like the fun they have, and we
Yeah.
don't, I mean, we're not goofy, but
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
stuffy. And I
There's
mean,
a
I'm working mainly with universities where stuffy is a thing. And so it's, we're unconventional in that respect. But then it's
Hmm.
like, oh wow, these guys know what they're talking about. That's what I'm going for.
I love the word grit. I use that a lot in my own branding, and I think like a playful grit is really cool because
Hmm.
um, they're out like totally opposite, right? And then see the word gritty on
Yeah.
the list. Playful grit.
That's
We're
a good
getting closer.
very opposite. Yeah, I like that a lot. Or like authenticity. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, you could kind of dig in like, is it playful? Is it more happy? Like, what is it? Do you feel like does playful get at like because you think it's fun and funny to experience you guys?
I kind of think so because it's kind of like we'll make cracks about stuff, when we'll call out somebody's bullshit, but in a lighthearted kind of way.
Yeah.
Um,
Even defining like, we're serious, but we don't take ourselves too seriously,
yeah,
helping
yeah,
define the voice a little bit of like, because I think that is pretty disruptive in your space. So again, like it's going to repel some people in a good way.
right, right.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially in your space.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of seen as a breath of fresh air, and we're in like I say, we're in a unique spot where we are can break that mold, and then people seem to like, well, this is a pleasant switch from the bullshit we hear.
Yeah, this is actually fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, okay, they know what they're talking about, but it's kind of lighthearted and they called us out, but not, like in a negative way, like,
Well, so
so
that's a really good example, I would say, of like, okay, this is the foundation for how then the personality comes to life. So the brand engine point is such a fabulous foundation for like as a building block. So let's say you settle on like playful authenticity or playful grit or something.
uh-huh.
Then you dig into, okay, now how do I bring that to life with my voice and my visuals. This is
Right.
why visuals, I feel so triggered by like someone just, some freelancer make me a logo because I like it, that this needs to be foundational to the strategy of why we look and feel the way we do. It is not just because it's an aesthetic, trendy logo that because I like blue, right?
Right.
But this is that first building block of aligning on like, are we really playful? Are we happy? Are we disruptive? Like, what is the word?
Hmm.
I really like the words. Been looking up in the thesaurus words for playful, and I really like the word spirited
Oh,
or
yeah.
or live or
Lively.
spirited or lively, spirited grit or lively grit. Really cool.
All
Spirited is a
right.
great word.
All right, Tobin.
Yeah, spirit. I love the word spirited.
I love
Yeah.
this stuff.
And then I think you would just outline like, so what is that? How does that show up? Are we trying to be funny? Like do we make jokes in our writing? Or you could really pull like keep the writing pretty formal and make the visuals more spirited.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like that's a really good way to figure out like how you want to dial it up or down.
Right. Because
It could
yeah,
be totally weird for you in your space, I think, to try and write in a funny way.
right, right, right,
Yeah, so it might like fall flat or land, it's going to be really hard to be truly funny through writing that's not going to be too disruptive in an academic space. So then I
right,
would say, okay, how do you make your visuals more spirited? How do you make those feel kind of delightful and
right,
happy and
right.
charming?
Okay.
I
This
mean,
is good.
that's also challenging for you, I would say, but doable.
Right.
But again, it's so helpful for aligning the team or AI. Like, I cannot emphasize enough how much better your output will be when you give Claude is our choice of LLM the scaffold.
Right. That's helpful. Yeah. Because part of it, yeah, because I'm sucking up a little bit too much time, but I know that part of the reason we get asked back is because, okay, like they told us some really good stuff, but we also had fun doing it and they handed it to us in a way that we could eat it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I mean, who doesn't want to like enjoy the experience that they're investing in?
Right, right. And like we covered some really important topics and we called bullshit on stuff, but it was like it was in a kind of fun way and it's like so we weren't snarky. Not yeah,
Right.
we're not snarky. Okay, which is
Right.
typically what lands in my world. Snarky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also think about like how you want people to feel like they're building trust as they're experiencing your brand online. Then when they experience you in real life, it's very much, they should feel like, of course, this is exactly what I expected. That's what really good brand does.
Right. Okay, cool.
So, like ways that you guys could, I think, delight up your visuals is a totally interesting
Right.
thought. Yeah. Anybody else want to share what they think maybe two words that go together or, even if it's like your personal style? Go
I'm we
Go ahead,
have
Nicole.
oh go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, okay. We have Hobby and I have a pickleball company. And we have two sectors of business, events and apparel. And our voice so far, without putting all the strategy behind it, has been very like playful and cheerful and fun and high energy. Um, I'm having trouble coming up with two words that lean to both sectors of the business. Like, even
hmm
though they both, we want to exude the same experience, which is just like community building and fun. And um, I was just like typing notes and had like vibrant experience, approachable fun, fierce fun, but I feel like it's still not, um, I don't know. I think I'm
I feel like,
overthinking
are
it.
you trying to be, is it humorous, would you say, Nicole?
Not so much humorous as I think on the deep level, which I know is what you said not to worry about with this. It's like trying to, it's like inclusive. Like we're an inclusive brand,
I love the word communal.
communal. That's good.
I
Or
say
maybe
that all.
like connection. Because
Mm.
communal's a little bit harder to like, so how do I imagine communal looking? But connection can have like this really like grounded, you see, you can kind of reverse out of it. So, like, at the heart of it, if it's connection, well, how do I get people to feel connection? I think approachable is really smart.
Mm.
Um,
Approachable.
or like, yeah, accessible, grounded, cheerful isn't, I mean, I think they're like happy, like the basically what we were talking about before with like joyful, happy, cheeky is a really fun word that you can really define. Cheeky is the intersection of like clever and fun or something like that. um but that's like a good word too. That would be, I would say that would be more if you are going down the humorous road. But if it should more just be like happy or playful, or is it like youthful? Am I supposed to feel like young? you know I think you can kind of back out of like, okay, the ultimate feeling is connection. How do I take people through the first step to get them here so that then they can experience connection when they're here? Like, what is that emotion they're looking for?
I like that. That's good. That actually helps me frame my mind better.
Right. Connection is pretty deep.
And
Anybody else?
just to kind of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I guess I was just gonna say quick, just kind of to piggyback a little bit on Nicole's. My interpretation is a little more of like it's kind of like certainly playful and exciting and kind of cheerful, inclusive. I also think from kind of a design side, um, I think we're a little more. I like the words hip and also refined. I think those two things kind of sometimes it's we have a very kind of playful, very hip kind of like um my certainly my vision for some of the creative assets are kind of have some sort of very trendy and kind of sort of visionary type and
Mhm.
playful, but it's very refined, and I like to take my time with the designs and things. So I like the idea of being playful, but people, people not really under knowing like kind of behind the scenes, things are very well thought out and very, kind of refined and how the things are created. But what we project as a brand is very kind of like fun and loose and as the sport is of pickleball. But I think there's a when there's thought involved, then people don't really understand how you came up with that good idea. Man, that's a fun idea. Why didn't I think of that? Well, that thought process is a refined part of it, I think, which is kind of like hip playful but very refined in how the designs are made.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good example, hobby, of like, do you want them to feel like it's refined? Or is it that refined is part of your process? You're not going to rush the work, you're going to do it really at a high level, but how do we want the demo to feel?
It's like a playful edge.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think at times your consumer, I think sometimes your consumer is maybe trying to find points where your brand aligns with them.
Mhm.
And so, like in a way, yeah, I'm almost kind of creating designs for someone who is playful, a little disruptive, but understands what, I don't know. Maybe that again, that's getting a little too granular. I think you're kind of more onto something that maybe kind of it's more of my personal identity of being a little more hip and refined, and the brand projection is a little more playful and inclusive and kind of in that way. But it's funny how they, when you juxtapose kind of the creator and the creation, is there a disconnect along the process, or is does is the create, is the creation in your brain or whatever you're trying to mold there, does it deviate from what you want, your consumer to interpret, to consume your brand or whatever, it's like, I guess that's what I'm maybe what you got me chewing on now is something slightly different.
I
Sorry,
think
I'll
that
shut up.
is like where the magic of brand happens, I think, is that it's authentically who we are, but it's also made for this brand advocate that we talked about in the beginning. And then that's where the magic is. So, like, Javi, if you guys have this really like refined experience because like we don't do anything half-assed here kind of thing, that might just be how they experience actually coming to play. But then I think we are really onto something with like playful edge and that this is part of their identity, and like when merch is such a great way to connect with like do they embody the brand because they wear our stuff. So like when you say if I was working for you and you said our brand is refined playfulness, I would immediately be thinking like, okay, are we going for like this almost tongue-in-cheek irony of like, highbrow tennis and golf, but it's pickleball, which I don't know that it is, right? So then that's a thing where you'd want to say like, is that really what I want my brand to exude? Is refined, or is it just that the experience is top notch because we don't do anything half-assed? That is different, I think. Like versus playful edge, right?
Right, I understand. Yeah.
And a really great like second tier drilling down here is to like just like I was talking about with Steve about like how you are leveraging the voice and the visuals together. You really want to identify like where are we leaning into which part of our brand tension point? Because like that's actually a super good example of like him using disruptive language in higher ed is probably going to put off a lot of people. But him using more disruptive visuals and keeping a more, academic tone within the writing is probably a good fit. So, like for Hoot, we try to be more disruptive with the voice and pull the visuals back a little bit. And that's really intentional because we want our work to be the hero, like the client work. So, if we're out there creating, for our identity, like crazy visuals, it can be a distraction from the work. So again, this is a really great way to drill down even further. How are we leaning into our brand tension point with visuals and voice? Like what's doing the heavy lifting for us? Okay, and here's just a QR code for anybody who wants to download the workbook. Like everything that we talk about in this brand being methodology can all be found in this free downloadable workbook. I highly encourage you guys to do an exercise like this so that you can either share it with humans who need to be trained on the brand, or like I said, we upload ours to Claude and we have a ton of success creating extremely on brand content because it's like I uploaded an entire brain of my brand into Claude. Any other questions I can answer for anybody about this, or happy to just also kick around other brand tension points?
So, okay, so back to Claude. So then you load up the brand being the content from the brand being workbook, and then you name it something, and then you ask Claude to speak in that voice.
Yes.
Okay. Because I think we loaded up a bunch of my stuff, and then, but I'm not sure it's speaking in that voice yet. So I might go back and I have to do it at the project level, right?
Yeah, I would do it. Yes, you definitely want to do it at the project level. And I
Okay.
actually think that's a good thing because you want your personal writing, your personal brand, your personal identity to be separate from the brand. This is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially in a founder-led company. It's not, I think this is such a great story. When I was like trying to transition Hoot from being like a small little shop to being more sophisticated, working with higher level clients, it was way too similar to my own personality. Most people come up on this point where they're like, the brand needs to be extracted. It is not me. And I had this friend say this thing that I thought was so like on point. And she was like, you're the friend you fart in front of. And you don't want the brand. Now we're going into this new level where we're charging way more per hour. This cannot be the friend you fart in front of, right? It's time to up level. And that is, it was like one of the, I'll like never forget that as long as I live. That was so true. I want to be accessible, goofy, friendly, transparent, all these things. The brand cannot be just an embodiment of me as a human being. That is not scalable and it's not sustainable. You are just one component, right? I'm just the leader of this brand, but I am not the brand. And that's such a great thing to suss out. So even identifying your own brand tension point is a fun little exercise to do outside of the brand as a whole, which is something that we want to be able to bring other people into the brand umbrella that is Hoot Design Company, Triangle Associates, the pickleball brand.
Okay. That makes sense. I'm gonna play around with that. I'm
I
getting
know.
better by pounding deeper and saying, not quite, change this, make it better.
Yeah, which is
Um,
exactly what it should be, right? Yeah. Yeah, I've like seen so much stuff on AI recently on LinkedIn, especially a lot of people in my industry are very resistant to this, which I find fascinating. Like it's stealing work, it's putting people out of work. I really don't think so. And there's so much pushback on like save your AI garbage. I would totally say to those people, you're just doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong because it can create fantastic content for you. You are not educating it. You are not telling it. You're telling it to search the web when it should be searching your brand being.
right, right. Well, and I'm using it, like you said, like a really good research assistant. I mean, it's and if you're not happy with it, you just ask it to do it slightly different. It doesn't get pissed off that it's spent all weekend working on something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No emotions.
Oh, and I mean, it does stuff that I wouldn't have time to do.
Oh
That's
yeah.
the
It's
bottom line. Yeah.
Hey, Kristen, it's Michael. How are you?
good. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, great content as always, and always great to hear from everybody who's shared. I'll just give a quick shout out. For everybody else on the call, we hired Hoot to put together a brand being book for us, and they did a phenomenal job. They reinvented who we are, what we look like, and how we go to market, and we've been incredibly pleased with it. To Kristen's point about taking our guy Harvey Barrett. I don't know when we came up with Harvey Barrett, but we did. Anyways, the voice around him in terms of identifying who our client is, optimal client, et cetera, has been very, very helpful in terms of us being laser focused on who we go after. So can't thank Hoot enough for focusing our attention where it needed to be, and then more importantly, telling those that don't fall within the guardrails of who we want to work with, we're not a good fit. So anyhow, I thought I'd just share that.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I feel like that is so true, isn't it? When you feel like you define who you're for, I swear there's like a component that you start being a magnet to those people when you actually define who you want.
Well, and I think regardless of a person's industry, I think people haven't done enough critical analysis to really think about who their customer is, and this exercise really forces you to drill down because it's not just simply the objective attributes, it's the subjective attributes. And I think that's really important because it does get into this idea of brand being, which is it's not the black and white, it's the gray, and the gray resonates. And so the more that you learn about the gray and define the gray, I think you're better at actually conveying that message about who you work with and work with well. It hits at a subconscious level to some degree, if you will, with the people you're trying to do business with.
Yeah, that was so well said. Like, I think what you're talking about, some of the stuff we get into with like what keeps them up at night, right? Yeah,
100%.
the
100%.
much deeper than, yeah, how much money they make or where they might live potentially. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sharing that.
my pleasure.
Well, happy to stick around and answer any questions. We have plenty of time, but we'll also put these, these are up on the webinar section of our website. We'll keep doing them. We're doing one on the brand advocate too. So that's probably our next one. And again, I think that I was just saying to Emma, I feel almost like, we fell backwards into this AI rocket fuel because we built this whole system to train teams. But I really think that the brand advocate is one of those things that makes our AI extremely effective because it knows exactly who we're talking to. I will warn you, I don't know if you've experienced this, Michael, with Claude, but I just learned that these are called hallucinations. So when Claude thinks that Elizabeth James is real, it will refer to Elizabeth and make quotes that she said and stuff so you got to watch out for that, but it's worth it.
Yeah, what's interesting is we were using AI post our first engagement with you folks, because obviously we're in engagement number 2 now, working on some new stuff. We were pretty singularly focused on primarily Claude and Perplexity, and because of this realm of hallucination, I've started to use a thing called Chat Hub, where when I give it an instruction set, it's running multiple LLMs at once. So Llama, Claude, XAI, ChatGPT, Perplexity. I know I'm missing one in there too. But anyways, it's interesting because especially, and it may have application, Steve, for what it is that you're doing, when you're doing deep research, we ran into a little bit of an issue. Fortunately, it never made its way to the client, but we were looking up tax code from the 80s, and we needed to be very precise about what it was. And it was interesting. 2 models were incorrect, and we knew it. We just didn't know how bad it was incorrect. And then we said to ourselves, depending on what sort of search we're doing, we probably need to be running these simultaneously. And that's where Chat Hub works well. You could do this theoretically, open up 6 different models, run it 6 different ways, 6 different cut and paste, etc. Chat Hub just basically takes one instruction set and feeds it into all of them simultaneously, and then it feeds it out. And it's interesting to see sort of what the output looks like. But I think,
so cool.
but you really need to define what it is that you're doing. And I still believe in terms of voice, hands down, Claude is better than the others, just because of its ability to manipulate it depending on sort of what's you're looking for. Formal, concise, witty strategist, I think, is one, Kristen, that you talked about before. I love its ability to do that, and it's interesting because the tonality of the messaging that you're trying to send to your audience, which differs depending on who it is that you're speaking to, right? I think that's super, super important, as opposed to just using a voice, because it doesn't always resonate with the individual. So and by the way, I didn't learn that. That was another thing, Kristen, that you, in one of your prior webinars, talked about the importance of that communication style when talking to your audience, and it's made a difference.
So Mike, give me just because I think Chat Hub might be just the thing I'm looking for. But is just go to the website and sign up, or what? Do you
Yeah,
have?
it actually sits on top of it sits on Chrome, and it's just an extension that sits up on the toolbox. And by the way, you don't have to have the paid versions.
Hmm.
If you do, though, obviously we know that you're limited in terms of usage on a daily basis. But like as an example, I have it up right now, and it's basically one screen, 6 different instructions set on the bottom, and I forgot what it was. It wasn't terribly expensive. It was like a one-time fee of like $40 or something. It was really de minimis, and read some reviews, thought it would be interesting. It turned out it's a great tool. It works really well.
That sounds excellent because I jump back and forth with Chat, GPT, and Claude to see what's going to give me a better answer.
I was
And I use it to check the results of the other.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing and I just wanted it consolidated and I had to poke around and I ultimately saw somebody, listen, I'm really good at stealing great ideas. And somebody else brought it up and I'm like, that's a fun. And anyway, so bought it and it works great. And like I said, we only paid for the professional version for Perplexity and Claude. So for Copilot, Llama, Gemma, Mistral, ChatGPT, they run in separate windows. And you can theoretically you can continue to expand the number of windows so you can run, hell, I have no idea. You can probably run 10, 12 different models if you thought it was necessary.
Sweet.
Wow, that is so helpful.
That's really good. Thank you.
Thinking, and I couldn't believe that that hadn't come out yet, just because of that. So many people, I think, are like, "What is my best output?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
my pleasure.
Okay. Well, so helpful, guys. I so appreciate you guys showing up to these and being willing to share and talk. So,
Oh, and this is great because I learned from Tobin and Michael and you, so this is a smart place to come for an hour.
yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Okay. Well, we'll be in touch with our sign up for the next webinar and also sending out the recording for this. So,
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen.
thanks,
So.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.